Civil War movie by Leah Wright.
My soldier, Leroy G Davis, was born July 10, 1949.
During the 1880 United States federal census, Leroy G Davis was married to a woman named Adeline S. Davis. They had 3 kids, George L. Davis, Irvin H. Davis, and Albert A. Davis. However, Leroy G. Davis is buried with a woman named Sarah A. Lakin, which makes me believe that Adeline may have died somehow and he remarried. Leroy G. Davis joined the war in 1863. However, since he was born in 1849, this means he was only 14 when he joined, meaning he would have had to lie about his age because the legal age to join the war was 18. My soldier fought along the East Coast like many other soldiers in the Civil War. This was the first painting that I looked at, and one of the first things that really caught my attention was that the entire family was helping out with chores. I thought that this might mean that the farm work was kind of a family activity, but it looked like everyone in the family had their own job. This made me think that maybe when the men went off to war, the women and the children had to take on some new chores that they might not be used to. In this picture, you see the man doing some labor-intensive activities while the young child, somebody who looks to be a grandfather, and the mother are sitting in the hay. So it might change if that man goes off to war. Another thing that I noticed was that it seemed like they were all dressed fairly nicely, which made me think that maybe the financial situation was okay with them and the war wasn't affecting them too badly. When I was looking at the Kingsbury letter, it was a really interesting way to get some of my information. Some of the things that I was thinking about and inferring was that maybe a lot of the ways that people got their information about what the war was like was through letters, because it really seemed like the people who were writing were going over a lot of the conditions. It also seemed like whoever they were writing to, they were talking about what they had been going through over a long period of time. So I was inferring that it might have taken a really long time for letters to go back and forth. Also, because the soldiers were traveling around, it may have been hard to get letters to post offices or in the mail. So this could have slowed things down. The next painting that I looked at was a painting of an old schoolhouse with some children in it. One of the first things that I noticed was that a couple of the children weren't wearing shoes. This led me to believe that shoes might have been a little expensive at the time. The next thing I noticed was that there seemed to be a really large age range in the room. On the right side, the kids look a lot younger than the kids on the left side. It looked like the teacher was paying attention to the older kids a little bit more at the time, so I thought that maybe while the teacher was teaching some of the older kids, the younger kids were allowed to eat lunch or relax a little bit.
I looked at a photograph of a war campsite and noticed a few different things. The first thing I noticed was that there weren't a whole lot of people there, only a few men. I also noticed that the campsite was fairly small, and all of the men were dressed in simple clothes, which made me think that they probably didn't have a lot of resources. I also saw that one man was holding something that was possibly a map, so they might have been mapping out where to go next.
Leroy G. Davis did not die in battle. He died May 31st, 1914, and is now buried in the Londonderry Cemetery. He rests with Sarah A. Lakin, who died 23 years earlier, but I believe was his second wife. As you can see from his gravestone, Leroy was probably fairly wealthy. His stone is polished in the front and rather large. It is also made out of granite, which was expensive.
One of the things I looked at were diary entries, which gave me a very direct and personal view into the soldiers' lives. When soldiers were writing, they talked a lot about drills and conditions.
One of the diaries I looked at was from a young man living in Vermont. Every day he wrote, but only wrote a few sentences. He wrote about what he did that day and the conditions. He also wrote one day about when they traveled to a different town. Because he wrote about it, it made me think that it might have been a bigger deal. And so that made me think that they didn't get to travel that much and they were usually just staying home in their own town. One thing I noticed when I was reading diaries from soldiers was that it seemed like they weren't fighting in battles as much as they were just at camps. Thank you for watching my video about Leroy G Davis. I hope it helped you understand a bit more about what life was like as a Civil War soldier in the 1800s.